6 years after Robbie Lawlor was found dead outside the house in North Belfast, the case moved again, not with a confession, not with a public trial, but with an arrest in Dublin. On Monday, June 22, 2026, guards from the Gardee National Bureau of Criminal Investigation arrested a man in his 40s. The arrest was made on a Northern Ireland extradition warrant. The police service of Northern Ireland wanted him brought north in connection with the murder investigation into Robbie Lawlor. That's when arrest raised a bigger question. Why 6 years after the shooting are investigators still moving pieces across the border? To understand that, we have to go back to the street where Robbie Lawlor's life ended. Robbie Lawlor was a Dublin man widely described in Irish reporting as a gangland figure. He was not an ordinary victim in an ordinary case. At the time of his death, he had been linked by investigators and media reporting to violent criminal disputes, including the Drogheda feud. Lawlor had also been considered a suspect in the murder of teenager Ken Murray Woods earlier in 2020. He was never convicted of that killing. That mattered because investigators did not treat Lawlor's death as a random attack. They were looking at enemies, feuds, movements between jurisdictions, and people connected to organized crime. And by April 2020, those connections were already crossing from the Republic of Ireland into Northern Ireland. On April 4, 2020, Robbie was in the Arbian area of North Belfast. The location was Etna Drive. According to reporting, he was outside the house when he was shot. Police later said the killing was being investigated as part of a wider joint operation between the PSNI and guards. The timing was important. This happened during a period when Gangland tensions were already high after the killing of Ken Murray Woods. Lawlor's presence in Belfast immediately became one of the central questions. Why was he there? Who knew he was coming? And who had enough information to be ready when he arrived? The first clue was the location. This was not Dublin. This was Belfast. That means two police services were involved from the beginning. The PSNI in Northern Ireland and guards in the Republic. The second clue was the nature of the attack. Police and reporting treated it as targeted. The third clue was the wider background. The journal reported at the time that the killing was understood to be linked to the ongoing Drogheda feud involving criminal enterprises on both sides of the border. This was the point where the case became more than one shooting. It became a cross-border investigation, and cross-border investigations move slowly because every arrest, warrant, and charge has to survive two legal systems. In the days and months after the murder, the PSNI made arrests. In December 2020, reporting said a man in his 40s was arrested on suspicion of murder and taken to a Musgrave police station for questioning. Later reporting also stated that people were charged in connection with the case, but the investigation did not stop there. Over the years, the case continued behind scene. Investigators looked at movements, communications, possible planning, and the people who may have helped before or after the attack. Then in 2026, the case surfaced again, this time not with the local Belfast arrests, with extradition proceeding in Dublin. The strange part is not only that Robbie was killed, it is where he was killed. A Dublin gangland figure ended up dead in North Belfast. That detail suggested the investigators were not only asking who pulled the trigger, they were asking who arranged the meeting, who tracked the movement, who helped with transport, who knew the target would be there, and who may have played the role before or after the attack. This is why extradition matters. An extradition arrest does not prove guilt, but it shows that Northern Ireland authorities believe they have a legal basis to bring a person before their courts. And when that happens 6 years later, it usually means investigators believe the case is still alive. On June 22, 2026, guards confirmed that their extradition team arrests a man in Dublin. The arrest was made on foot of a trade and cooperation agreement extradition warrant. The purpose was to extradite the man to Northern Ireland to be charged in connection with the Robbie murder investigation. Irish Times reporting identified the man as Barry Young, aged 41, from Sligo. The report stated he appeared before the High Court in Dublin on a Northern Ireland warrant. It also reported that he was wanted by the PSNI so he could be prosecuted for Robbie murder. According to that reporting, he did not apply for bail and was due to appear again by video link. This was not the only extradition development. Early in 2026, Jonathan Gill appeared before the High Court in Dublin after being arrested on Northern Ireland. Extradition warrant connected to the same murder investigation that made the June arrest part of a wider pattern. The case was not fading, it was expanding. The confirmed evidence in the public record is limited. We know Robbie was shot dead on Etna Drive in Belfast on April 4, 2020. We know the investigation is being handled jointly by the PSNI and guards. We know guards arrested a man in Dublin on June 22, 2026 on extradition warrants. We know that earlier in 2026, another man also faced extradition proceeding connected to the same investigation. One possible theory is that investigators are now focusing less on the moment of the shooting alone and more on the network around it. That means planning, movement, communications, and assistance. This theory fits the public facts because the latest developments involve extradition and prosecution requests, not just questioning. But this theory is not proven. What is missing is the full evidence that prosecutors say connects each accused person to the murder. That evidence would have to be tested in court. Until then, the arrests are important, but they are not convictions. As of the latest public updates, the Robbie murder investigation remains active. The June 22nd arrest brought another man before the Irish court for extradition to Northern Ireland. The PSNI wants him in Northern Ireland in connection with the murder case. The court process is not the same as a murder trial. First, the extradition issue must be handled. Only then can the Northern Ireland prosecution process move forward against any person surrendered to that jurisdiction. That means the biggest answers are still ahead. The public does not yet know what full evidence prosecutors intend to rely on. The public does not yet know how the accused will respond to the allegations in a Northern Ireland court, and the public does not yet know whether the case will finally explain what happened around Etna Drive that day. Robbie killing was never just about one street in Belfast. It became a case about organized crime, old feuds, cross-border policing, and the long reach of a murder investigation. 6 years later, the new arrest shows that investigators are still working through the case. The final question is simple. Was Robbie murder the act of one gunman alone, or was it the final move in a wider plan that stretched across borders? Until the evidence is heard in court, that question remains open.